Try not to say mother challenge. I already lost. I like this film, but you might not. Let's talk about that.
There may only be one of us left standing when this is over.
I know.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. Today's review is about Mother Mary, a psychological drama written and directed by David Lowery. Among his other directing credits, we have The Green Knight, which is probably a decent litmus test for whether or not you will enjoy this new film of his. If you are open to a more cerebral, surreal film with bold visuals and excellent acting, then I would recommend Mother Mary, as well as The Green Knight, but we're not reviewing that today. Per usual, the first portion of this review will have minimal spoilers, and then we will follow that up with a spoiler section. It's difficult to fully discuss or even provide meaningful feedback of this film without going into some spoilers, so we will be fairly quick in this first part. Mother Mary is about a pop star of that same name, Mother Mary, played by Anne Hathaway. She is, to put it mildly, a woman unraveling. In the lead up to a big tour, she makes a hasty, impulsive trip to the English countryside to visit a world-renowned designer named Sam Anselm. Sam is played by Michaela Coel, and Sam has a long, complicated history with Mother Mary. For the sake of brevity, I will at times refer to her simply as Mary, but either way, I'm still talking about the same person. Mary has visited Sam to request that she design a dress for this tour. Although the story is, at its most superficial layer, about making the perfect dress for this momentous occasion, it's a densely packed, highly layered story that is more interested in throwing the audience down a rabbit hole of unpacking the emotional entanglement of these two women, their relationship, the falling out they had, and the need for them to talk things out. I would have to describe this film as esoteric. I would liken it to high fashion, conceptually speaking. What I mean by that is, when you see videos or photographs of high fashion, whether it's a runway show or a photo shoot, you're likely to see something more avant-garde, something that isn't for everyday wear. If it's done well, it will be visually interesting, striking, conceptual, bold. It's an artistic expression as opposed to a simple presentation of something that is intended to be mass-produced and sold for commercial retail. Mother Mary is not something that's aiming to be narratively straightforward. It requires viewers to pay close attention, be fully dialed in, think hard about what things mean. What does the outward layer of what you're seeing really represent? How do you interpret the material? Having said that, though, I would not fault anyone for thinking that this movie is too esoteric. I went to the cinema, and I was a child at the time, and I saw a film that was more of an art house, esoteric type of thing. I had no idea what was going on. I was confused and annoyed, and I felt like it was a waste of my time. Now, I might not feel that way now if I were to go and rewatch that film, but I'm not going to do that because the director has exposed themselves as being a bootlicker for the AI industrial complex, so I'm not supporting their work for the time being, which is also why I haven't named the film to you who are watching this video. But I present this example because I'm making the point that I know that feeling. If you go to the cinema and are expecting something that doesn't require you to concentrate like that, really have an open mind about that type of art, and then that's what you end up seeing, you're probably not going to have fun with it. There were times while I was watching Mother Mary and I would wonder, well, what's going on right now? Where is this going? But because I had an open mind and I also like to experience a variety of types of art, because well, with how many films I watch, it would get extremely monotonous if everything was done with the most conventional methods each and every time. Let's talk about some broad positive feedback, and then pretty soon we will get to the spoiler section. Most of the film is focused on two women, Anne Hathaway and Michaela Coel. I loved getting to see the two of them perform, as well as the chemistry they had with each other. This emotional entanglement of these women. I did have more than one moment where I thought to myself, are they about to kiss? They did not, though. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that because I don't want to do false advertising and have anyone thinking or wondering if it's going to be more sapphic than it is, but there is a vibe there between them. There are a lot of bold, extravagant visuals in some of the Mother Mary outfits, certain sequences, and in particular once the film is becoming less grounded in realism. The only noteworthy thing that I would say disappointed me about the film is that Mother Mary is supposed to be this extremely massive pop star, but whenever they would play bits of her performing various songs from her discography, The songs were just mid, forgettable. I don't know if that was a deliberate choice because they didn't want all of us in the audience to get too caught up in the frenzy of a well-written pop banger. But when I think about how many pretend pop stars we've seen across a multitude of films, there have been much better songs created for the purpose of bringing those pop stars to life. I mean, listening to these sleepy, forgettable Mother Mary songs did make me pull up Blood on White Satin by Sky Riley. That's the pop star character Naomi Scott played in Smile 2, and that song is a bop.
Oh, okay, well, I think that's...
Now let's talk about spoilers. When Mother Mary shows up to reunite with Sam and ask her to make this incredible dress, she's already a woman unraveling, as I said before. Here's the thing, if a woman is unraveling, as long as the story isn't being exploitative towards her, it can be fantastic material to let a woman act the hell out of a role, and Anne Hathaway fully committed. She is constantly on the verge of a breakdown, about to cry, or she is crying. Not necessarily a loud cry, but she's always holding in so much emotion. The emotions are so strong that her eyes cannot help but leak. Michaela Coel, I love her in this too. She's the one steering the dynamic of this reunion when the film starts. She's calling the shots because, well, you eventually learn as the two of them are both opening up about what happened between them, why their relationship fell apart, that Sam is the one who has worked through more of the negative emotions she experienced because of that falling out. Initially, you spend a long period of time with just these two women in a giant, I don't know what we would call it. It's not a warehouse, but it's a giant, not a castle per se, but it's part of this large estate in the countryside. The particular building they're in contains various designing supplies like fabrics, pins, those types of items. And we were spending so much time in that location that I thought, oh, well, more or less the entire film is just going to be the two of them talking inside here. I was thinking that it might be like a more somber, artistic version of what happens later. If you don't know about what happens later, a couple of years ago, Meg Ryan directed this rom-com starring herself with David Duchovny, and the two of them play exes who unexpectedly find themselves reunited in an airport, and then a storm rolls in, which causes them to have to stay longer in the airport than originally planned, and the two of them just talk. They catch up, they go through their relationship history, and it's really about their chemistry and the ability of those actors to make us believe that they do in fact have all of that history, even though in that film we don't see it play out at all. Initially, Mother Mary appeared to be doing something very broadly speaking conceptually similar, because it was just these two women talking to each other in a single location, and I was thinking to myself, well, if that's what we're doing here, I'm on board for the ride. Let me know exactly what happened between the two of you. However, the further you go into the film, it really is a rabbit hole that you're falling through. It becomes more hypnotic, feverish, surreal. You do get to see these flashbacks for each of them to fill in more of the blanks about what has happened between them. But also, at times, they would have those actors in the flashbacks. And what I mean by that is they would show the present day Mother Mary and Sam standing in one of their flashbacks. Together, they would watch the flashback play out. That's just one example of what I mean by the film being more artistic and unconventional in its style and delivery. Where things start to get really wild, though, is when they introduce a supernatural element into the story. Sam talks about an encounter she had with a ghost, and this ghost, or spirit of some kind, is presented on screen as a floating red fabric. Sam tells Mary about having this encounter, but then the ghost floated away from her. Mary says that she too has encountered this ghost, and once you've been shown this flashback encounter of people doing a seance and Mary shortly thereafter being possessed by this same ghost, it's now still living inside of her. This is when I want to share with you who are watching my interpretation of this as a complete work of art. I've not done a deep dive into trying to investigate whether or not the creative talent have put forth their own explanations of this. This is merely how I experienced the story and what I took from it. Sam had mentioned how she wasn't able to accomplish the enormous success she now has in fashion, something that was her own independent work that's separate from all that she used to do for Mother Mary before she was cut off by her. Sam did not accomplish these new things until after she stopped hating Mary. In the grand scheme of how the story plays out, and what each of these women experienced while separated from one another, I think that the ghost is more so representative of many of the negative emotions they harbored, particularly about the dissolution of their relationship. Sam felt hatred, anger, betrayal, abandonment, but once she let all of that go, this ghostly spirit left her and seemingly floated from London all the way to Dublin, where Mother Mary was doing a show, and that was when she first got possessed. To me, there's an implication of all of the negative emotions Mary has about the stress and pressures of fame, but also feeling off balance from no longer having someone that was really important to her, someone that she closely collaborated with, and then ended things with in a very poor manner. So all of the guilt and sadness has taken longer to build up in Mother Mary, and that's why she doesn't experience this festering possession until later. There's a delay to her experiencing this, whereas Sam felt terrible right from the initial separation, but she also worked through those emotions first. Sam and Mary have to do this exorcism together, and one could say that the exorcism is merely the exaggerated version of what we've seen them do for most of the film up until that point. They are excavating their relationship. They're performing an autopsy. How and why did this go wrong between us? That's how they're able to reconcile with one another. Instead of just doing the most matter-of-fact, straightforward delivery of having estranged friends reunite, talk things out, say you're sorry repeatedly, mean it, and Bob's your uncle, you have now reconciled. Film is a visual medium, so why not make the most of that medium and incorporate these other aspects of genre storytelling, of supernatural elements, and of performance art? There's a point in the film where Sam asks Mary to do the choreography that Mary's planning to do for a new song she's going to be debuting at this upcoming show. If she's going to be moving around on stage, Sam will need to know what to avoid in her design so that it doesn't restrict Mary's ability to dance. But Sam hasn't listened to Mary's music since the last time she saw her, and she doesn't want to hear it now. So she has Mary do the dance without any music. The dance style is more so contemporary, and the longer Mary dances, the more intense and almost erratic her movements become. And it's both uncomfortable and impressive to watch because you can tell a lot of work has been put into learning and performing this dance number, but also within the story's universe, Mary is expressing so much of her inner emotional turmoil through this dance. It's evident that the film has a reverence for live performance art. Much of the actors are performing these long monologues and telling stories to each other, opening up to excavate this relationship, and it feels like you're watching theater. You see Mary do this dance, but you also see her doing bigger performances at her past concerts. The bold visuals mixed with this more cerebral, psychological, artistic horror reminded me a bit of The Cell. I haven't rewatched The Cell in many years now. I should probably do a rewatch, but that film's visuals are so striking that it's one of the first films that came to mind once things started to escalate and get a bit more weird in Mother Mary. Also, perhaps some elements of films like Sisters, the Brian De Palma film, a horror film with interesting female leads where you're digging deep into their psychology. I know I've been now referring to the film as a horror film. I don't know if I would say that it's fully a horror film, but more so a psychological drama that incorporates horror elements when things really start to escalate anyway. Overall, Mother Mary is an interesting film. It won't appeal to everyone, but I do hope that the people who are open to that type of art will be able to find it and get something meaningful out of it. Either way, even if you think this one might be a bit too peculiar for you, we will be talking about Anne Hathaway more this year. Devil Wears Prada 2 will be my next movie review, and that will be coming out next week. And later this year, we have Verity, which I already published a source material video on, and if you've read that book, you know that we will have lots to say.